It wasn't really that long ago where I just outright refused to buy any smartphone that was under $400, just because of the fact that the budget phones were honestly pretty terrible back then. They kind of felt like throwaway phones, if I'm gonna be completely honest. And that didn't really start changing until the bigger companies actually started taking the budget market a little bit more seriously, and they started to actually dabble in and start making some budget phones for budget users. And they've been making phones under $400 now that are awesome, $300 too, that are still really good, and especially now under $200, which is exactly what I'm holding here. Introducing the Samsung Galaxy A20S. Is a sub $200 phone worth it? Well, let's find out. The unboxing on this one is actually going to be pretty nice. Cutting through the plastic seal, we just slide the cover off to find a small box containing some instructions and warranty information, and most importantly, an included 64GB micro SD card. I remember when these were very expensive, and now they're so cheap that they're just being included in the box. That's already a great value if you ask me. Next is the A20S itself. We will unwrap it, admire it, then put it aside to see the USB-C charging cable, the power plug, and the SIM ejection tool. Overall, on the budget side, this is definitely a really cool unboxing, and they definitely spent a little bit of that budget on accessories, which is something that I really appreciate, in particular that 64GB micro SD card. That is a substantial amount of more storage that is just included in the box, so kudos for them. The exterior design of this phone is going to consist of this pretty much overall plastic material for almost the entirety of the build here. Even though the trimmings look like aluminum and they do feel extremely solid, they are still plastic, and even though the back cover looks like glass, it is still plastic. However, the sturdiest plastic phone that I have ever felt. Like, this phone actually has quite a bit of heft, it feels really nice in the hand, and it's not even that slippery really, in spite of its materials. Think at all that this phone is anywhere under $200. Honestly, anywhere under $500. Now, this phone looks really premium, and that actually feels really good too. So the construction of this phone is going to be a huge plus here. And on the right, you're going to find a sleep-wake button. On the left, you're going to find yourself with a volume rocker, the SD card slot / SD card slot around this side. And at the bottom, you're going to find a single speaker on this phone, USB-C connection for charging, and a beloved 3.5mm headphone jack. In terms of I/O, I'm really happy here, and it sucks that this sort of thing is now only available on the budget side too, which kind of makes me reconsider why we're spending so much money on these higher-end phones, considering that they're technically losing out on things. This device features a 6.5-inch 1560 by 720 IPS display. The screen is just average for a budget phone really, and colors are more on the cool side of things, and the icons on the UI don't look so good as the corners are kind of blurry. But this is more obvious because it's low resolution on a massive screen. However, for watching content, it's still pretty good. It's an enjoyable experience for watching videos, but as someone who's coming from the Pixel 4, it's hard to overlook the quality of this display. Compromises had to be made somewhere in order to get it to be this cheap. Though on camera, the screen does look much better and warmer than it actually is in person. That's something that is worth noting. However, I think that the screen is really just fine, especially for the price. And in terms of speaker quality, this phone is only going to have a single speaker driver around the bottom of it, which is actually pretty easy to cover up. The speaker gets pretty loud, and it actually does sound pretty good. I was genuinely surprised with the quality of the speaker. So with that said, have a listen. Going to use in order to access all of your menus, and the shutter button all the way on top is going to be your OK button as well. On the sides, you're going to find a couple of navigation. This phone features a Snapdragon 450 CPU, an Adreno 506 GPU, 3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of internal storage. Though it is expandable, a 4000 mAh battery, a megapixel front-facing camera that supports a resolution of up to 1080p, and 3 cameras around the back, which include a 13 megapixel main camera at f1.8, an 8 megapixel camera at f2.2, and a 5 megapixel camera which is running at f2.2 as well. And speaking of cameras, I went ahead and tested both the front-facing camera and all 3 of the rear-facing cameras. So here are my thoughts. I like to start off with the front-facing camera as per usual. Front-facing camera is fine. It's fine for pictures and videos, as photos and videos are reasonably sharp. Images can look processed by quite a bit. There's also a live blur mode that is supposed to behave as your portrait mode slider for adjusting the background blur, but don't use it. It's horrible and doesn't work like at all. Otherwise, it is a pretty decent camera. As for the rear-facing cameras, I do have quite a few thoughts on these, and I'll get into that now. On this end, you've actually got sharper videos and pictures because of the higher megapixel count, in spite of these topping off at 1080p as well. They look good here too, and colors are nice and vibrant really. You got yourself the wide-angle lens, which makes for really fun videos and pictures, but live blur is still terrible here. However, everything else is pretty nice here, and I'm actually pretty satisfied with the quality of the cameras around the rear as well, even if live blur is absolutely atrocious, and I would completely stay away from it whether you're using the front or the rear facing cameras at all. So keep that into consideration. Maximum at 1080p as well. And as for gaming performance, this phone actually performed incredibly well, and it is using older hardware as a matter of fact. However, even with the hardware intensive game like Mortal Kombat, this phone absolutely crushed it. The frame rates were very smooth, and the graphics looked awesome, and it was honestly just a really cool experience here on this device. In terms of gaming, this phone also has you covered, and it should be able to handle the vast majority of mobile games out there just fine. And battery life is also really good here. So this phone is rocking a 4000 mAh battery, which is a gigantic battery, and it's only suitable for a phone that is actually this big. And when you combine that with the very low resolution display here, you've got yourself a recipe for a phone that should be able to last you all day and even more. So in terms of battery life, even with a ton of use, I have not had any issues with the battery life here. And it should last you at the very least the entirety of the day before you have to plug it in and leave it charging overnight. So with that said, battery life is going to be a very strong suit here. However, there are still going to be some notable compromises that you'll be dealing with when it comes to this phone if you were considering it in the first place. So with that said, I'd like to bring those up and hopefully shed a little bit of light on that, as this is a budget phone after all. And these aren't exactly complaints, as they're just compromises and some things that you would be losing out on if you went at this budget. And for one, this phone is not water resistant. So you do have triple cameras, but that's not a huge feature here because you won't be using all of them for the most part. Mostly just the wide angle and main cameras for sure. I experienced some crashes when opening YouTube, the Play Store, and other commonly used apps. This mostly happened at first when I got the phone. That hasn't been occurring so much nowadays. Performance, it isn't perfectly stable, and that could be a little bit concerning. However, as I just said, it's something that it hasn't happened to me in quite some time, so I honestly would not worry too much about that. And that's pretty much everything I needed to bring up when it comes to this phone. Even when it comes to some minor compromises that you'll be coming across at this budget. However, as a sub $200 phone, this phone is absolutely fantastic. And this phone feels a lot more premium, and the performance is actually pretty good. I mean, it's a sub $200 phone. It feels like it costs much more than that and has so many things going for it that just make this phone such an amazing value. And if this is your budget, then you won't be disappointed, even if, again, performance isn't totally consistent, since I did have a lot of crashes at first. But at this price, this phone is totally amazing for it. Highly recommended if this is your budget. And if you're interested in purchasing this phone, then I will be making sure to leave affiliate links to Amazon down in the description. If you use any of my links and make a purchase, then I do get a small commission that does help me run things just a little bit more smoothly around here. So if you were to use those, I would very much appreciate that. You can also find me at Twitch, on Twitter, and Instagram if you like me enough. I'd be more than happy to have you and see you on any of those other social media platforms. So do follow me on those if you're interested. With that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you all later. Enjoy.